August, good morning. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you, Nick. Glad to be here.
So you're the CEO and owner of Oberly Risk Strategies. So what is Oberly and what was your career path to where you are today?
So Oberly is a specialty insurance broker. We work with many folks in the ETA world. That's sort of our focus is middle market, lower middle market, private equity. We help our clients who, entrepreneurs, they go and buy businesses. We help them do the insurance due diligence on the commercial insurance and the benefits and the life insurance and help guide them through to, make sure that there's a zero hassle factor. That's our goal when they buy a business, to make sure the insurance is looking good and there's no surprises. We also have a division to it, Oberly, that does personal. We call it our private client group. We do personal insurance for a lot of entrepreneurs too, to help them manage their risks personally, homeowners and auto insurance. Oberly is based in St. Louis, like you are, heart of the Midwest. And we have about 20 employees here. We have, clients all over the country. I think we're almost at 1,000 clients plus. So it's great. And I was a searcher. I got into this space because I used a search fund to buy an insurance business. My dad was in insurance and his dad was in insurance, and actually his dad. So I was this was my path, but I love the business. It's a good industry. I love working with, folks in the ETA community. It's really fun to hear their energy and excitement and be a part of that, when they're going to buy a business and make a big move in their career. It's so fun. So that's what gets me up every morning. That's what I do. I got 4 kids and, have lived in the Bay Area. I did my search out of the Bay Area, but St. Louis is home.
So I know you did 2 searches and 2 acquisitions. What were you doing in your career before going down that path?
So I actually found out about search. I was in the Bay Area and I worked for 2 guys who did a traditional search fund, and they bought a logistics business, third-party asset-light logistics business. And I got to know them, sort of friends of friends out there, and joined them as one of their first sales hires right out of school, right out of college, and help them grow that business. They were great entrepreneurs. And so in the minute I heard from them that, what they did and how they, I went down to go interview with them, and, they explained the search fund model. I was probably 24. I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. That was my career beforehand. And I felt like sales has been, and it was just a great primer for doing a search fund and running a business. I guess I've gotten used to rejection a little bit. And so that's where I started my path.
In your first acquisition, you did a traditional search fund. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
So tell us the story there. How did that go? How long did you hold that business? What was your experience like?
Yeah. So I did an industry focused traditional search fund back in 2008, 2009, and focused on buying an insurance business, which had the criteria that a lot of the investors were looking for, which is recurring revenue, low churn, asset light, relatively sort of steady, predictable business, not a lot of client concentration, recession proof, all those kind of things, boring, good old business. So I just focused on buying an agency, and I found one in Wisconsin, Madison, and found it early on in my search. I got connected to the seller. I had reached out to an industry periodical, the editor of, it's called the Insurance Journal, and it said, hey, I'm looking to buy an insurance agency. I'd like to, can you introduce me to someone? And they made an introduction to me in this business in Madison, which I ended up buying. And it had about $1.5 million, $2 million EBITDA, based right outside of Madison. Very sort of steady Main Street type clients, had been around for 20 plus years. And it was a, sort of right down the fairway of what we were looking good sort of multiple. So I moved out there. My family ran it for 5 years, and a couple things happened during that period. One is more people buying insurance agencies and doing a roll up became more popular. So the multiple went up a lot from what I initially paid. And, I felt like when that time between 5 and 7 years, we'd made some progress in the business, and it had started, worked hard at it, and it felt like the right time to probably sell. So I ran a process and sold it to another roll up, larger broker, and did that in 2000. I sold in 2015. So it was about a five plus year time period. And then once I sold, I worked for the buyer for 3 years as part of kind of an earn out thing, which was a great experience. That was my first deal.
3 years to work for the buyer. Is that longer than what you would typically see? It feels like a long time.
I think so. for peers I know and friends I have in the search world, it seemed a little longer. I think many times when a strategic buys you, that they have people that can come in and kind of run the business and you're out. But in insurance, the industry, it's very much a relationship business. So many times the buyers are very leery of a seller who wants to just exit, because if the seller exits, those relationships could exit with the clients. So they many times, as part of a deal in my space, my industry, they have an earnout where you have to stay on. You have to kind of commit to helping with the transition. And usually it's like standard about 3 years. And so I kind of knew that going in. And I think if I had said, hey, I'm out, or didn't commit to it, I think it would have not as been of a good of a deal for the investors. And I was excited too. I'd never worked for like a big roll up operation. And it was kind of interesting to see how the sausage is made a little bit, how they were going to do it. Because I had just been a searcher and running my little small business, and I learned a lot, and it was great. But I still felt like I had the energy to be an entrepreneur. I knew that it was still my calling. I was 35, and I knew I had to get back in the game on being an entrepreneur. But I learned a lot.
That relationship risk that you mentioned, how did you manage that when you purchased this business? Did you have the seller stay on for?
Yeah, I did the same thing in my deals. I had the seller stay on for 3 years. Seller rolled a little equity, had a seller note too. And so they were really like tied in. And, I really had the attitude I had to go in and meet those key clients and make sure everyone was comfortable with the transition. It's a very competitive industry for us in terms of like going after clients. And the minute word got out when I bought this agency in Wisconsin, I know that all our competitors were calling these clients saying, oh, they got a new guy and he's young and he never done it, and come over and move your insurance over to us. And I'm sure that was going on. And so I really had to get out and go see him immediately and tell him everything was going okay. And the seller had to really be a big part of kind of, hey, I'm still here. This is my long-term perpetuation plan. So that's the biggest thing when you're buying an insurance business, is that very issue.
What was your day one like when you acquired that business and showed up?
Because of that dynamic, he wanted to keep it highly secret. So he told the team that, hey, we have a 401k meeting. And during the 401k meeting, he goes, oh, I just sold the business and August is the new CEO. And even though I'm from Midwest, I had most recently lived in California. Like, there's like a California guy in Wisconsin. Like, they just couldn't get their mind. A couple of people were immediately in tears in the front row. I remember that. It was just shock. But I actually came out wearing a cheese head for the Packers, and I got a lot of laughs, and that was fun. That kind of helped break the ice. I explained to everybody that my goals are your goals, and I want to learn, and I'm a family man, and I'm here to help, and hopefully we can make this agency even better. And I'm excited to learn about all the Wisconsin stuff. It's such a great culture up there. They've got all this. It was just such a fun time in my life. I learned a lot. And that's part of the fun thing about a search for you. Just no idea where you're going to go, how it's going to end up. And I was telling my wife yesterday, I was like, can you believe we live in this? It was so fun. It all worked out, but it was stressful.
What did you do there to really implement a culture that reflected you as the new owner? Like over time, what are some of the things you did to build trust with these employees and lay out your own culture?
Yeah. Just to be candid, I don't know if I had the confidence. I was outwardly confident as a CEO, but I don't innerly, if I was inside, I was really confident about what I was doing when I first took the job. I was thinking, man, I've never done this before. Outwardly, I tried to really project that I was sort of in charge and knew what I was doing. And I think that probably came off as being insincere a little bit. And I probably could have started just being like, hey guys, I really got a lot to learn here. And so I was sort of innerly anxious a little bit and not sure of myself and trying to. There's a lot of conventional wisdom that I was told going into my search. Hey, don't change too many things. Keep it going. It's a good business for a reason. So I was almost paranoid about no, let's just keep it, let's keep everything going. Let's not ruffle feathers, and almost tiptoeing a little bit, I felt like. And as as the years went by, I felt like I became more like myself and was more genuine and realized that, hey, there are things here we need to really fix and change. And there's going to be some hard decisions. The business, when I bought it, it wasn't growing very fast. It was growing, but not double digit. And I think we needed to bring in some producers and really change some things. So it's interesting. The first couple of years, I really tried to keep it all the same. But by the end of the time I had sold and left 8 years later, almost the entire team had turned over. And there was maybe 3 people left that were there when I originally bought the business. And at the time I left, we were growing much faster and all that. And so I it took me a while to get the confidence enough to make the changes I needed to make to run the business. But I think that's probably pretty standard.
Yeah, I've heard that when there's an ownership change, you should expect about half of the people will eventually turn over at least. Seems not uncommon.
Yeah.
So we mentioned bringing on these producers. I assume that means salespeople, perhaps sales leadership. That's might be one of the hardest hires to make, right? So how did you do that well?
So you're right. That's a good observation. Man, I was all excited about I was like, I'm going to hire my first 3 salespeople. They're going to be awesome. And they all washed out. And it was a major setback. And it was sort of embarrassing for me and the board. And I was so excited about them. And they didn't produce and didn't sell. So I hired a consultant to help me think through doing some personality tests and finding producers. We sort of came across with this consultant who helped me a personality profile that we thought would be successful. And then my job was to go out and find that personality profile, irrespective of the person's background. We came to the conclusion that this consultant told me that people who are really good hunter producer type people, salespeople, it's less than 5% of the population has that DNA. It's a combo of confidence, persistence, ego, hard work, ability to read the room. It's a rare mix. And so I knew I had to find the 5 out of the 100. I had to really find those people. So I started going to other industries where they had good sales cultures. And I worked to recruit those people into insurance and tell them, hey, the economics are better for you. Sometimes really good salespeople I find are many times coin operated, where they want to know, they want to make money. They want to have good commission. They want to do well. So I would find those people who are great in one industry, say, hey, you come over here. I think you have a better life and make more money. And I really was successful finding people like that.
So it sounds like you used Culture Index.
Exactly. And that was a big part. So I found that was really helpful. And then I also, another thing that I learned was what seemed to prove out was when I asked people in an interview, for sales, how much money would you like to make in your life someday? What's your goal? I found the bigger the answer, the better they were going to be in sales. It's interesting. And I don't know if that proves out every time, but it's seemed in our industry where you can, do well. And if people give you a big number, it sounds like they're really ambitious and they're going to go do it. And they believe in themselves that they can do it on a commission-based job. So that was another way, a filter I used to define it. We found some really great salespeople.
So what are these other industries that you mentioned where you believe they had good, strong sales culture, but perhaps had lower earning potential than in yours?
We found ADP and payroll services was a huge one. Recruiting was a huge one. One of the things in our industry, if you're a producer and our salesperson, or I call them producers, you get residual commissions. So if you win a client, you get the commission as long as they're a client. And that's really appealing to someone who, I'm just working on a project basis. I kind of go from, top of the mountain every year and I start at zero. You can kind of build a book of business in our space. And so anybody who was B2B sales, and I would try to find people in those spaces where they were the top 1 or 2 performers in their company. And oftentimes I would go to coffee and I would bring a list I'm like, here's some people on LinkedIn. Do you know any of these people? Who's really good at sales? And I would find them and I would hear that and I would keep a list of who I sort of, I don't know, who I thought was really, really good and force rank them. And then my job was to sell them, constantly calling them, texting them, come see me. I want to tell you about our business. I think you'd be awesome. So that was a huge part of my job.
Do you continue to use Culture Index at Oberly?
Yeah, I do. I use it. It's called Predictive Index, which I think is a spinoff of it. But yeah, I do. And I don't think it's everything. I've certainly had some ones that have been not worked out. So I don't want to say it's like the silver bullet, but it's a nice data point for me. And if you have that, and if you have a track record of somebody who can really sell, and it's proven in their other space, and they're personally motivated for some reason, and they wanted, I think that's a really good formula. The problem is those people, many times, are being well taken care of at another company. They're good for a reason. So it's not an easy lift, but it's not like you're just going to say, they're going to apply for a job. So it's a big part of people, my industry is recruiting producers and getting them on board and making it a great culture and place that they want to work and build a career.
Did you also have a head of sales at that company?
That was me. Yeah, I felt like that was the number one thing. That was the one leverage point for the business to grow it. I felt like I need to be very closely involved. That was my number one thing.
What was your approach to motivating salespeople?
I think that I asked this my board early on. I was like, I don't know if I don't know if these guys are motivated. I thought like, and they came back. I still think about this. They're like, well, you got the wrong people. I mean, a really good one, you shouldn't have to motivate. And so I think that's true. I think the bigger risk is demotivating great people by having a bad culture or, micromanaging or not, capping their commission or whatever it is, playing games with them with their comp. I think if you get a really good person, they just literally run through brick walls. The good ones, I mean, they would come into my office, they like just were, so fired up to go out and sell every day. And driven. And that was what we were trying to hire for.
I think you're absolutely correct there. Maybe just one other question before we move from this chapter. In a traditional search, those of us that are familiar with the model, in order to maximize your benefit and for the investors, you essentially have to double the size of the company during your hold period, right? To hit the IRR hurdles. How did you handle, I mean, that's a quite a bit of pressure, right?
Yeah.
So how did you manage that personally?
I think I've talked a little bit about this with some peers and, maybe on an interview before a podcast, but I never felt anxiety until I became a CEO. I never had it in my life, ever. Sports, college, grade school, and I learned what anxiety was that first couple of years of running a business. I never had it before. And I wasn't super anxious in tracking like the IRR every month or every year. I wasn't like thinking about that. That wasn't what was driving it for me. I think, if I really think about it, it was like, can I do a good job? Am I making investors happy? I think sometimes investors, I've gotten feedback that, if you write great letters and communicate really well and tell them that the bad things and the good things, they know that every deal isn't going to be a winner. And I had an investor tell me, August, if this doesn't go well, I mean, this isn't my kid's college money, don't worry. And that was like, okay, good. And I think what they really wanted is transparency, someone who was coachable. I wanted to learn. I wanted to do what they, and I felt like that was the mark and the standards I was trying to hit and that I was anxious about hitting more than the IRR. And I think all these investors in the traditional world, they've seen it all. They've seen ones that have gone to zero. They've seen the home run, the like Hall of Famer ones. And I think what they really want is a good steward of their money and someone who's totally honest and open to feedback. I felt like when we went through tough times, the board was like in it with me. They were bummed themselves. They felt like man, maybe we're not giving you the right advice. Maybe we're not coaching you. Maybe that was the wrong move. So my anxiety wasn't as much about IRR. That's a long answer here. More about making sure I was, being a really good reporting up to them well, and also making sure everyone with the company was happy and optics, like is people excited to be at this new company? Am I doing a good job? Like I worried about that stuff. I still do. I think it's just probably natural. So it's you kind of got to build up a thick skin a little.
I think that's really wise insight. I joke with folks. Everybody says they want to be the CEO. I have no, you don't. You don't really want to.
It's not all limousines and caviar. That's for sure.
Right. So, you had a great success with that situation. People often say, get your first deal done, do it well, and then a lot of things start to open up for you. Is that your experience?
Yeah, I think so. I think even going into that deal, I knew there was problems with it, but at some point you got to say, I just got to get comfortable enough with the problems to do the deal. I learned a ton. I really felt like it was just I was very lucky, and I had such a good board. I think that's so important, is picking people around you. If you're going to go through that, you got to have people they're with you. They're going to give you good advice. They think about it. So it was a great chapter, and we ended up, my wife and I had 3 of our 4 kids in Madison. It's a special place for us. I learned they have this great beer up there called Spotted Cow, and I learned all about the Packers. I mean, I had a great time. The summers are incredible. People were so nice. So it was just a total adventure for us.
That's great. So then you did the 3-year earnout. How much time did you spend from that earnout to deciding to go do a self-funded search?
So I had some material financial, money on the line in the earnout, and it was set up that way. So I was working hard to try to hit that, and it was important to me. And, I was learning, and they wanted me to kind of oversee a couple other offices that I hadn't had before. as part of this strategic. So I learned, I did that. That was interesting and fun. And I pretty early on, I knew like, I don't think I could do this forever, just because it just wasn't like, I wasn't so pumped about it. It wasn't like a hell yeah kind of thing. And I had a non-compete where I couldn't work in insurance in Wisconsin. And so I knew like, well, if I was going to do something, I'd have to move. And so I started thinking about it, and I started thinking about what I really wanted to do with my career long run. And I came to the conclusion that I loved operating. I loved insurance. I still felt like it was a great industry. I wanted to have something that I could own forever. And so I wanted to take what I've learned in that chapter and bring it. So I felt like if I could do a self-funded and buy a little business myself, maybe it'll start small, but over time it could become a special business. And so that was my thinking. And as you know, Nick, I love St. Louis. I know you love St. Louis. My wife, who's from the West Coast, like, I don't understand why you want to go back to St. Louis. Like, I was like, oh, it's just going to be great. And so finally she was like, okay, if you want to go back to St. Louis, I'll go with you. She's a great sport. So we found a little agency here in St. Louis and bought it in 2019 after I left that organization. So it worked out.
And when you acquired Oberly, did you know going into it that you were going to really emphasize serving ETA clients?
When I was at the last one, I started getting a lot of calls from my searcher friends that were buying businesses, and they were like, I just need another, you're a searcher. Can you just make sure the insurance looks good? I don't want to I got a lot in diligence. If you can take care of the diligence for me, that would be great on the insurance side. So that was growing, and I knew it could be an opportunity. And so when I started Oberly and got it going, bought it, and I knew it was going to be something we did. I didn't know where it was going to go, to be honest. I didn't know it was going to grow. It's grown a lot. We're probably faster than I thought. It's become more popular, and it's changed, and it's evolved all in great ways. And so I sort of when I first bought it, I didn't really I was like, I just got to survive the first couple years, and I was just trying to get to work every day. I wish I could tell you I had this master plan, but I didn't.
Well, educate us a little bit on insurance for companies. So when you do these due diligence phases, what are you looking for? What should the person in my shoes be paying attention to?
Yeah, well, when you buy a business, you do all these diligence parts, and it's common to do like a quality of earnings and do their legal. Maybe if it's a tech, you'll do a tech diligence, or if they have a pollution issue, you're buying a building, you might do like a site survey. But a part of that is also looking at the company's insurance program. And it's important because you don't want to step into a surprise your first year. You want to know what you're getting into. And surprises could be things like the premium doubles because there was a claim that you didn't know about, and now you own the business and it's doubling. Or maybe there's like in the pro forma, it's the insurance is really, really thin. Like they forgot to buy auto insurance. They don't buy, and then you getting like, oh my gosh, I got to buy all these coverages, and that's going to really eat into my margin. I wish I would have known about that. Or, many times searchers they bring on a board and they add new coverages like D&O and those kind of things. We have searchers that are doing an SBA deal, and they'll need life insurance, and we help do that. Part of the SBA deal is that they want to make sure you have some type of life insurance on the buyer or the seller. The buyer has life insurance who takes out the loan. And then benefits too. Like when you buy a business, you want to make sure the benefits look good and they're not like a disaster. So more times than not, we see in our projects that the sellers, their insurance is very thin, and they do the least amount of insurance they can get so they can get the biggest margin. We at least want to educate the buyer on that. They can keep that same plan in place, but we at least want you to know about it. The second thing we do, most of our clients, this is the first time they've ever bought insurance on a commercial side. And so we really want to make sure we're teaching about what all these coverages are. There's businesses can buy 6, 7, 8 different insurance policies for your business sometimes. What are they? How do they work together? Do I need to buy it? What are the risks? Can I self-insure for that? So half of our job is analyzing, and the other half is teaching to make sure when you step into CEO, okay, I got a pretty good insurance 101. I know what's going on. And we really want to make sure we're helping with that. The last part we do is, you come in to buy a business, and then you would say, hey, Oberly's our insurance broker, and we want to make sure we do a great job with your new team. You're bringing in a new provider, and we got to nail that. So we got to have a great bedside manner. We've got to give fanatical customer service so that your team, your controller, or your CFO is like, wow, Oberly's awesome. This is great. We want to make sure we make you look good.
And so what do you do specifically in your business to reinforce that customer service culture?
So our whole model is we think we grow by customer service. if we deliver high quality, we will grow our business. Most of our opportunities come from word of mouth. We are very, very into delivering the best possible experience. So we have everybody who runs an account or handles an account here at ourselves, our company, they have a net promoter score, a score for themselves. And so we watch that very, very closely. That's one. And we want to be at the top of our industry net promoter score. People are bonused accordingly to how their net promoter scores are. Second, we watch client retention. So we want to keep our clients. So we really try to show people, here's where your retention is. And that's the second level. So those are the two things I really watch to make sure we're delivering high quality. Like, are our clients staying with us, and are they like raving fans? And are we doing everything we possibly can? We want to go, if the average agency is here, we want to go one or two steps above that in terms of service. And honestly, I talk about it all the time too. Like, annoyingly, people roll their eyes, but that's all we talk about is service and quality and the customer. At the bigger strategic I work for, all they talked about in meetings was like doing deals and EBITDA. And we don't talk about that at all. We're talking about, how can we make this better for the client, or how do we help save them money here, or how can we take this off their, reduce the burden on this thing. And we don't nail it every time. We got all kinds of things that we're trying to get better at, but that's our model. And that's what got me excited about Oberly, is I could kind of create a company like that, that was entirely focused on that. It really, we feel like a pride, a professional pride in what we do, and everyone does here too. And so that's really fun.
Do you use any of the operating systems that you hear for businesses?
Yeah. I've used EOS for 10 years plus, and I like EOS. It's great. There's a new iteration called Pinnacle. That might not be new, but we're using that, and that's been great. And we have a moderator that's helped us do that. I self-implemented before and hasn't been as great. So we are using a Pinnacle to help us, with our quarterly and yearly and long-term planning.
And you found that to be valuable?
Yeah, very.
You mentioned wanting to find a business that you might hold forever.
Yeah.
So this sounds like it's it for you.
I think so. I mean, I'm having a lot of fun. It's not easy. It really isn't. And there's some days, like there's days you're like, well, this is a lot. And, just being candid, you do feel like it's not always like great, but long run, I'm thrilled. Like I love the long run thing, but day to day, sometimes there's really bad days.
Yep, that's true.
I'm a positive person. I'm optimistic. I think we're going to, do great things. So generally, I think that helps me get through a lot of those struggles.
It's interesting you say that. We just happen to have our monthly company meeting coming up tomorrow. And one of the things I was going to talk to folks about is, what do you anchor yourself to that lets you get through those very tough days? So I'll ask you the question, what's your anchor that, CEOs face some things that can be crippling, and somehow you got to get through it. There's no choice.
Yeah, I think there are, there are times where it's something bad happens. We don't do a great job with a client, or something goes wrong.
Those are hard.
They're very hard. And, I'm a pleaser. I want people to be happy with us. I want them to feel like they're like, Oberly's great. It's very, it's personal. It's totally personal. And so I feel it. And so I just kind of like tell myself, I just got to just do one day at a time. And just, what can I do today? Let's try to what can I do to fix this and make it better? So I try to like get really like, I take a deep breath, maybe go for a walk, and I come back and I think to myself, okay, what are the one or two things I can finish the day with? It's going to be productive and move forward. And that's honestly it. And I really feel long-term passionate that this could be a special business. It's like my dream. And that helps me. Like, I just like that. I want to do it. I can see it. And it's, it's going to be hard, but as long as I sort of got that vision that this is going to be special, and it is special right now, but it's going to be incredible over the years to do. And the people we'll have here, and the teamwork, and people here at Oberly doing really well financially and building a life for themselves and a career. Like, that's really fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. It hits hard when you talk about how personal you take it, or any of us take it, when there's a problem with a customer. There, like you say, nothing's perfect. There's going to be problems. And I've said around here, when we have a problem with a customer, I wish you would just feel 10% of what I feel.
I know.
Because it's devastating.
It is. And I think with the customer issue, one thing we've talked about here is like, bad news never gets better with time. And something bad happens, and a service failure or something, call the client immediately. Say, hey, I don't know if we have an answer yet, but I want to tell you immediately something's not working, or we dropped the ball. Every time I'm like, oh, I kind of want to wait on this or let it simmer. No. And that seems to be a little trick that has paid off, because if you wait, it just snowballs and it gets worse. On the other end, when I went with service provider, we have failures, just tell us. So it's hard to do some days to pick up the phone immediately, but if you do it in the long run, I think it helps.
Definitely. So what do you do outside of work, August? You have 4 kids. What do you do?
I really busy with our 4 kids. They're ages 15 to 8. So like I'm like a professional driver around town with them. I try to go for runs in the morning. I live near this park here in St. Louis, which is incredible, called Forest Park. If you've never been to St. Louis, you got to check it out. It's amazing. You know, I honestly, I spend a lot of time with my family when I'm not at work, and that's it. It's all in on this. I'm not doing a lot too much other than that. I'm not terribly boring, but I kind of am in a way, and trying to, you know, I feel like it's my kids' turn. Or they're like my focus. It's their life, their time to be in the sun. So I just got to pay the bills.
Well, you have a really awesome story, some really good insights, particularly on culture, hiring good sales talent. I like all that stuff. You're a very well-known person in the ETA community that helps out a lot of folks in my shoes. So, you know, I appreciate that. I hear good things from other searchers. So good for you for being a good part of the community.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. Appreciate having me on.
Thanks.
Yeah.